So if you have this, is it time to throw it away? That's the question I will answer. Stick with me and you'll be able to figure it out for yourself. Severin Films presents Russ Meyer's Vixen from 1968. Incredibly popular and controversial film in its day, which the extras on this disc get into wonderfully. This was maybe really the big breakthrough movie for Russ Meyer. He had been successfully making movies for about a decade or so at this point, but this was the one that really put him over the top. What is Vixen about and why should you care? Let me tell you. So Vixen, this is available on Blu-ray and DVD from Severin Films in a newly remastered version that looks phenomenal, better than I've ever seen this movie look before. And one wonders if it's better than it ever even looked in the theater originally. It's 71 minutes and directed by Russ Meyer with Gavin as Vixen. Harrison Page, who you might know from the Sledgehammer TV shows and from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, Garth Pillsbury, and John Evans. And originally this was rated X. It was pretty easily an R now, and comes with optional English subtitles. This is a 4K restoration produced by the Museum of Modern Art, which I think is just wonderful that the Museum of Modern Art houses the materials for Vixen, for any Russ Meyer movie, really. And from the original camera negative and inner positive, 1:6 aspect ratio. So it's not super widescreen, but it's more widescreen than it ever was before. Previous video editions released by Russ Meyer were always 4:3. He had all of his films, or most of his films, mastered in 4:3 for a big home video release, the Buzomania series, which this new series by Severin keeps the look of those old video releases, which I think is wonderful. He had put them out, had them painstakingly remastered for what was great for VHS. Those VHS masters were then utilized for a Laserdisc release of a few of his movies, and those VHS masters were utilized for an Arrow UK series of releases, and RM Films International in the US, Russ Meyer's company himself, after he died, put them out on DVD. But they never looked any better than the videotapes did until now with Severin. So this looks fabulous. I have been comparing these releases with the previous video releases that I have. I'm a huge Russ Meyer fan, so this is very, very exciting. This is not going to be a short review. And they look great. They look better than they ever did. They look more colorful than they ever did. And the widescreen composition, yes, it cuts off a little from the top and the bottom. The original presentations that Russ Meyer prepared were open matte, so you just saw all of what the camera negative exposed. So the compositions were always fine on video, but they look better. I mean, it's composed for widescreen. Like, what is cut off now is what was always intended to be cut off. So they look, honestly, a bit more artistic than they did before. They always look phenomenal. The thing about Russ Meyer, everybody thinks his movies are just a bunch of busty babes bouncing around. Yes, and we welcome that. But they were also incredibly well shot, incredibly well edited and scored. They're bizarre and wacky and wonderful. They are a genre in and of themselves. They're unlike anything you had ever seen before, except the stuff that imitated him later, like movies like the Double D Avenger and Pervert. And there's a bunch of movies that emulated his style, but there's only one Russ Meyer, and sadly he is no longer with us, but happily his body of work seems to finally be coming out in the presentation that it's really kind of deserved since the digital age came upon us. So what is Vixen about? Vixen is the title character. That's what she is called in the film. That's her name. And she is this busty, lusty lady who lives up in the Canadian wilderness with her husband, who is a pilot and is basically like a fishing and hunting guide. And she lives in a cabin. And while her husband is away, the Vixen will play with anything that moves, basically. Man, woman, relative, friend, enemy, pretty much anything. She's insatiable desires. So it's a lot of that in this movie. It's a lot of coupling. Her husband is just kind of amusingly oblivious to all of this. Her draft-dodging brother and their biker friends, her brother, the aforementioned John Evans, and the aforementioned Harrison Page. John Evans is her brother. Harrison Page is I guess the intention at the time was to portray him as like a black militant, but they're both draft dodgers that had fled to Canada to get away from the draft at the time, because this is 1968 after all. So there's a very antagonistic relationship between she and her brother. Her brother is always just joking and taunting her. She's just venom at all times with her brother, and also inappropriately being suggestive with her brother. And Harrison Page, she is just a nasty racist wench for the most part, and he just thinks it's funny. He just thinks she's an idiot, and he just taunts her back. Eventually things come to a head with every relationship in more ways than one. Eventually, a young, attractive couple comes to have a weekend hunting and fishing getaway, and various people pair up with various people. Eventually, a Scottish communist shows up, and that causes some conflict. And this whole movie, one of the things I love about Russ Meyer movies is really not until his last couple of movies, he played them completely straight. I should correct that. His earliest movies, he had three genres, basically. You had the nudie cuties up front. There were these colorful, silly movies that were basically like pinups or Playboy cartoons come to life. You had the rural melodramas that were black and white, that were about unrequited love and lust in the backwoods and things like that. Think Mudhoney and stuff like that. And then and Faster Pussycat Kill Kill was sort of like the tail end of that. Then he did these color, maybe he had four phases. He did these color melodramas, which Vixen falls into, and Finders, Keepers, Lovers, Weepers, and Good Morning and Goodbye and stuff like that. And then he moved into basically self-parody with Super Vixens and Up and Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens he was doing. And then he had this little studio period where he did Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. So maybe he had a lot of periods. Did a lot of interesting stuff. But this is in that period of the very tail end of him doing the melodramas. But what I was starting to say was, the nudie cuties he made, and they were comedies, and they were silly and funny and goofy. The melodramas were really kind of over the top, and they were funny at times, but they were always played straight. And then when he moved into this era, Vixen is really funny, but it is played dead serious the whole time, and to me that makes it funnier. There's only really one or two moments in the film that are overtly comedy, and even up through the end, more often than not, he had his characters play it straight, which to me makes it even funnier. That's for like me. Police Squad is funnier than the Naked Gun movies because Leslie Nielsen and everybody was playing it dead straight. They weren't being goofy. So Vixen, go in, let me tell you, it is a comedy. It is pretty funny. It's just played dead serious and dead straight and over the top and moralistic and speechifying, and to me it makes it funnier. How explicit is this movie? Somebody had asked me online, I'd done a review about Super Vixens, and they said, which one should I start with? Because this initial Severin release is Vixen from 68, Super Vixens from 75, and Meyer's last completed film, Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens from 79. And there are various levels of explicitness and goofiness. Vixen is the most mainstream of the three. This played mainstream theaters for years. This played a lot. This was a controversial film because of its content, as I said, originally rated X, but it's just for nudity, basically, and it's not even complete explicit nudity. There's a lot of rutting going on in this film, but it's more goofy and artistic, and Meyer loved to basically take the mattress off a bed and shoot underneath from up under the bed springs, so you're seeing like a bed spring's eye view of what's going on above. It's just fun. It's just fun. So it's fun. Erica Gavin is phenomenal in this film. She went on to be in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, for Russ Meyer's big studio picture. A couple of years later, she went on to be in Jonathan Demme's Caged Heat. She was in a film called Erica's Hot Summer, but she didn't really do a lot. She kind of backed out of being in movies, unfortunately, but she's still active online. She's still doing well. It's always great to hear from her. She is on the extras here in both new and archival content, and Harrison Page is phenomenal. Everybody in this is really good, and it's just a lot of fun. Garth Pillsbury as the totally oblivious husband is pretty hilarious, and just the way it's shot, the way it has this heavy-handed narration, the way it's scored, it's just all phenomenal. It's a really fun movie, and it's so exciting that these movies are finally being available again, because they were available on videotape from RM Films International for years, but they were always incredibly expensive. Not even a lot of video stores carried them because they were that borderline soft X kind of movie. They've never really played on cable that much in this country or TV. They've not seen a lot of revival action since their original releases. So this is finally getting these movies out there and getting them available to see again. I had long feared as a fan that his legacy would be lost, his materials would be lost, his people would just forget because they were so inaccessible for so long, aside from those Arrow UK DVDs and the RM Films DVDs, which also were sort of pricier than a lot of fans wanted to pay. So a lot of people weren't buying them. So these are not cheap, but they are absolutely worth it. And they are worth it because we know that if these sell really well, we're going to get more of these. And Severin certainly wants to do it, and RM Films certainly wants to do it, as long as it's financially viable, to march their way like a campaign through Europe, like Russ Meyer once did as a combat photographer in World War II. They really want to work their way through this catalog. And personally, selfishly, I really want to have all of these looking this good on Blu-ray with all these new extras and as much archival stuff as they can dig up. So what are the extras on this? We have a commentary by Erica Gavin with David Gregory. This is from Severin. This is a new commentary. She calls him Punkin. It's excellent. She's super sweet, super informative. Some of what she says is repeated elsewhere in the extras, but I mean, you only have so many stories of working on a movie for a few weeks. There is a Russ Meyer commentary, which is phenomenal. Russ Meyer only did a few commentaries while he was alive. He did them initially for the Laserdiscs. And there was this box set, which I wish I had to show you, but it was called the Vixen set, or the Vixen collection. It was a really cool deluxe box set, the first Laserdiscs that came out of Russ Meyer movies, and he did the commentaries for those. And then he did a commentary for Faster Pussycat for that Laserdisc. I don't remember if he did it for Motorcycle as well. And the Russ Meyer commentary, he's explicit, he's crude, he tells you the nuts and bolts of how they achieved certain things. He is incredibly personal about a lot of things. It's the kind of commentary that I don't know if the lawyers would let go out these days, but I'm glad they were recorded and preserved. So you want to hear that. They do devolve into play-by-play sometimes, but you're hanging out with Russ Meyer talking about one of his movies. I don't mind if it's play-by-play. You wish there was less of that, but I'll take whatever I can get. The man's not with us anymore. The Erica Gavin commentary, as I said, is excellent. There is a 1981 censor prologue for the theatrical re-release, which basically is a text crawl that plays at the beginning that goes out. It speaks out against censorship in a very Russ Meyer wordy kind of style, and it's over fast cut footage that might have been lifted from Cherry, Harry, and Raquel with Ushi Digard, Another Woman in Buildings and stuff. I'm pretty sure that's what it's from, because I'm pretty sure that Cherry Harry, at least the video version that I have, opens with that as well. You have Woman or Animal, an interview with actors Erica Gavin and Harrison Page. This is from the 2005 Arrow Video Blu-ray. I'm sorry, Arrow Video DVD. So it's standard definition. It's if you have the old Arrow disc, this is porting that over. So one less reason to have the old Arrow disc. David Delval's The Sinister Image. This is a public access show that David Delval, film historian David Delval, had in LA in the 80s. And it's an interview. It's a half-hour sit-down with Russ Meyer and Yvette Vickers. It's 21 minutes from 1987. And Yvette Vickers had been photographed by Russ Meyer when he was a Playboy photographer, a pinup photographer, back in the 50s, early 60s. So it's them reminiscing a little bit, but it's mostly Russ Meyer talking about his work, and that's just fabulous. Entertainment or Obscenity. This is a really good new featurette with film historian Mark Edward Hoyk on the film's historic Cincinnati censorship battles. That's 13 minutes long. He actually has the actual print that was the print that was seized by the FBI back when this was going on. It's cool. I hope we get a lot more of this stuff in future Russ Meyer releases from Severin. We get a trailer that's a minute and a half, and it's got amazing Russ Meyer style editing and narration. I will say, so here we go. So what we have here, here's the freeze frame. We have the original DVD release by Arrow Video, early Arrow Video, before they are what they are now, in the UK, this was really what most people were able to get their hands on in the digital era. And sadly, bootlegs have been made of this for a long time, and bootleg sets, because they put out like 18 of his films on DVD. Again, looking no better than the VHS tapes and not really having much in the way of extras. Only the Vixen movies had extras, and that's why I own these on DVD. Otherwise, I was cool with having the Laserdisc. And then the Severin version, no glare. So you see, the Severin version emulates the look of the old RM Films packaging, which is great. And there was a bundle you could buy where they had the original VHS insert that was signed by Erica Gavin, which is very cool. So Severin version front and back emulates the old RM Film style, which I hope they continue to do. And nothing too thrilling on the inside. The only thing that I would suggest you want to keep these old Arrow videos for is if you don't have a Blu-ray player. But if you do have a Blu-ray, if you don't have a Blu-ray player, these are out on DVD too. This edition presents the film in full frame 4:3. It does not look anywhere near as good as the new Severin Master does, but it's a little bit more information on the top and the bottom. So if you're like a hardcore super fan like me and you're like, I want that extra image. Honestly, I don't know when I would ever pop this in again to watch it with how the Severin disc looks, but it is kind of cool to be able to have that. It does have an extra that this disc doesn't. It has a Erica Gavin photo album. It's got a trailer reel, which this Severin version does not have, and it's a whole bunch of Russ Meyer trailers put together. They don't look that great, and I trust that as these come out, each of these releases is going to have its trailer, and it's going to look as phenomenal as the Vixen trailer does on this edition. So Eventually, hopefully, the trailer reel that's exclusive to these will not be an issue anymore because we'll have all the trailers on the individual film releases. But it does have an Erica Gavin photo album on here. It's a 25-image photo gallery from her personal archive that is not present on the Severin disc, unfortunately. So you might want to hold on to it for that. You might want to get it for that. My guess is that as this Severin version gets out and is more widely available, a whole lot of people who bought these are going to be jettisoning these on eBay in the secondary market and be able to pick them up pretty cheap. They are region 2, so you do need an all-region DVD or Blu-ray player to be able to play those Arrow UK discs. I know there are bootlegs out there. I'm not a fan of bootlegs. I don't really believe in supporting bootleggers when you can legitimately get it from somewhere, but that Arrow set did go out of print and people just started cranking out bootlegs. I would highly recommend not buying the bootlegs because we really want to pay for these new Severin editions to help send a message that we want more of these discs and so that we can get more than just a fistful of Russ Meyer movies. We don't want the only version we're ever going to have of some of these things to be these smeary 4x3 releases that were fine in the VHS era but do not look good today. We really want more from Severin. So please support Severin Films, and I loved this. This is a great edition of Russ Meyer's Vixen.